Strange but true stories. Tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. Columbus, Indiana, November 1974. A beast lurking in a local park. Eyewitnesses say the creature had a mossy green-skinned appearance, was between 6 and 7 feet tall, and walked on 2 legs. Mill Race Park is an 83-acre recreation space in Columbus, Indiana, which is about 50 miles south of Indianapolis. Today, this park is recognized as one of the top 100 parks in the country in terms of design and accessibility. With an 84-foot observation tower, a covered bridge, hiking trails, 2 lakes, and a whole lot more, it's a tourist attraction that draws people from all around. But it wasn't always that way, and it even harbors a scary past. Back in the 1940s and 50s, the area had substandard housing. It was frequently flooded, and rats the size of small dogs took up residence there. In 1963, the land was bought by the city and turned into a park. Back in those days, it was called Tipton Park. On November 1st, 1974, around 3 in the afternoon, the local police received a call from a young lady claiming to have seen a green, hairy creature lurking near a boat ramp leading to the White River. Skeptical police, figuring they were involving themselves in a real-life Scooby-Doo episode and half expecting to see the Mystery Machine parked somewhere nearby, arrived to talk with 4 girls who all claimed to have seen the monster. All 4 said it was large and green. After spotting the creature, they ran as quickly as they could and reported it to the authorities as soon as they found a phone. The police patiently wrote down the account with a healthy bit of skepticism, told the young ladies to be careful and to hurry home. Later that day, 2 older women, unrelated to the 4 teenagers who had been at the park earlier that afternoon, pulled into the park area to eat dinner and talk. Tyra Cataline was one of the women in the car that night. Recounting her story for the television show Monsters and Mysteries in America, she talked about what she remembered from that night. Out from the woods comes this thing. It had to be at least 7 feet tall, if not taller. It was way taller than a normal man. Stuck inside their car, staring at this creature getting closer, the 2 women began to panic. But they were frozen in fear as it started to bang on the car. It was beating on the windshield, trying to get in, and we were screaming. Who wouldn't be screaming? We thought we were all going to die. I screamed that we had to get out of here, but my friend's legs were shaking so badly she couldn't get the car started. In this time, Cataline was able to get a really good look at the creature and described it like this. There was a greenish tinge to it, the thing's face. I don't know if it had been in the river drinking and it got moss on it because there was so much slime on its face. It did have fangs, and he was trying to bite through the glass, and I was afraid he was going to tear the door off. Nothing has ever scared me as much as that. Cataline's friend was finally able to get herself together enough to start the car, put it in reverse, and leave the slime green fiend standing in the parking lot. The pair went directly to the police department and described what they had both encountered at the park. Despite hearing their account, Cataline said, "It just seemed like they were laughing about it. They said, 'Oh, a monster. Really? Have you been drinking?' I told them we hadn't, and that this really happened. It's out there, in the park, and it's going to get somebody." We showed the officers the damage done to my friend's car. They could tell that something had been pounding on the hood and windshield. And then there was the smell. Cataline described it as, the car stunk on the outside so bad, it was like decomposed animals. I don't know how else to describe it. Not convinced, but at least encouraged enough to go put more eyes on the park, the police drove to the area of the 2 sightings to check it out. The officers did not find the creature or any evidence of the green-skinned, hairy creature. With the excitement over for the night, the officers drove back to the precinct, thinking all of this ridiculousness would be forgotten by morning. But they were wrong. The Saturday edition of the Republic newspaper had the screaming headline, "Monster. Women report seeing beast in Mill Race," with a description of it being seen in daylight as a green, hairy, large, about 6 to 7 feet tall, walking upright and has claws. Another sighting followed on November 5th as what was now being called the mill race monster stepping out of the shadows to scare 2 male park visitors. Again, the sighting happened in the daytime, in the late afternoon. The men left only to return later that night with binoculars to get a better look at the creature. Around midnight, the 2 men spotted the green monster and were chased from the park by it. A few days later, on the 8th, another sighting. The Indianapolis Star reported 2 city workers seeing the creature while attempting to rescue a pair of cats stuck in a tree. From about 200 yards away, the 2 men saw it. One of the men, Rick Duckworth, decided to pursue it. This time, the monster took off as fast as a deer and disappeared in the woods. The men went back to work rescuing the cats and were able to get them back on the ground. Once those cats were back on the ground, though, they took off like bolts of lightning. Duckworth said those cats were really scared. But Duckworth wasn't buying this creature as some strange cryptid. Instead, Duckworth swore he believed it was nothing more than a large-framed man wearing a green mask and green blankets draped over him. And while the man in a suit hypothesis took off around town, Cataline was not having it. I know it's real, and what I saw is not a joke. It was not a person in a costume. It was really something that could move around. It could grimace its face. It was growling. It was very aggressive. So people can think what they want. I know what I saw, and it was pretty bad. I don't want to think about it too long because it still scares me to this day. After the 4th sighting, word had spread all over Indiana, and people swarmed to the area armed with shotguns and baseball bats, trying to catch a glimpse of the Mill Park monster. Tensions around town mounted as all of these outsiders descended on the town, and it became a sticky situation. As November progressed, city officials threatened to close the park at night, not because of the monster, but because of the public. The furor began to die down shortly after, as no additional sightings were reported, leading to speculation that if this creature was real, what happened to it? Cataline is firmly in the believe category, saying, "Sometimes when I think about it, it gives me goosebumps. It takes me back to that evening. I've never seen anything like that before. To this day, I wonder where it came from and where it went to."
Did you see that?
The mystery abounds. 600 pounds, walking on 2 feet.
Has Bigfoot been spotted in Maine?
Bigfoot is the source of decades of bewilderment. Does the creature exist?
Still, I get funny feelings when I come down here.
Tyra Cataline returns to the place where she says she faced an Indiana Bigfoot.
We thought we were going to die.
It was 41 years ago, this November, here at Mill Race Park in Columbus. Cataline and 2 other girls were inside a car. They saw movement from afar, and then the creature ran up fast.
And that thing kept throwing itself at the car. It was horrible. It was the most horrible thing you ever looked at. Its face was all slimy and everything.
Cataline and the girls drove away, terrified and hysterical. The days that followed brought a search for the Mill Race monster, later believed to be someone in a costume. But don't tell her that.
It was something, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't somebody wearing a costume.
Here in Indiana, people do claim to see a creature known as Bigfoot, as you can see his R-light.
Chris McDaniel runs Indiana Bigfoot Reports,
This kind of gives a brief description of Bigfoot.
a website that tracks Bigfoot sightings by Hoosiers. Most, he says, come from across the state, with many near Terre Haute and Brown County.
14 inches.
Spring and fall are a hot time for these reports. McDaniel often goes out to investigate for himself.
We get about 4 to 5 reports a year, and you can see these footprints and how wide the strides were. People just come right out and say, "I seen this 8-foot tall hairy creature, and I know it was Bigfoot."
He says many people are afraid of ridicule and just don't know who to call.
We had a local law enforcement officer come to us one time and claimed to see the creature, but he needed to stay anonymous because of his position.
The most recent report came just a few weeks ago, on October 10th. A man said he was hunting with 2 other people in Morgan Monroe Forest in Martinsville. He was separated from the group, but then heard a howl that terrified him. It was the loudest howl I've ever heard. It was almost as if I spooked what I believe was indeed a Bigfoot, and he was letting me know that was his territory. The man took off running.
One of the interesting things with stories like this or experiences like this is they challenge our sense of what's possible. They challenge our sense of what the world really is about.
Dr. Donald Braid at Butler University has a PhD in folklore.
We tend to interpret things from our perspective, how we understand that the world works.
Is that Bigfoot?
He's tracked the legends of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, stories he says that likely originated in the Pacific Northwest with Native Americans. Braid likens Bigfoot to the idea of the Asian Yeti or abominable snowman.
They're probably connected to other stories in other parts of the world.
So is Bigfoot real?
We may come up with evidence on something like this, or we may not.
Braid studied physics as an undergrad, and this scientist says
Truth is a very difficult thing here.
he doesn't know.
I don't want to say I believe or I don't believe. That possibility, that mystery is intriguing to me as well.
Someone who did see something says that Indiana Bigfoot forever changed her.
And I believe there's things out there now.
So, what do you think? Slimy, hairy, green-skinned creature? Or man in a suit? Figment of imagination? Or visitor from another world? Let us know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and sign up for notifications to know exactly when the next video drops to our channel. Thanks for watching. I'm Steve White. Until next time.